Welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with UATV. Today, we're talking about the latest political crisis in Moldova. It started last week when Moldova's pro-Russian President Igor Dodon has been stripped of his duties. The move came after his party agreed a coalition cabinet with a pro-European Union bloc. Outgoing PM Pavel Filip's rival party challenged that, and the Constitutional Court backed Mr. Filip, appointing him as interim president. Since then, two opposing factions tussle for control over the country. So how can the situation unfold further, and how can this influence the relations between Moldova and Ukraine? To talk more about this, we're joined in the studio today by Eugene Yaroshenko. He's an international relations expert at the Democracy House think tank. Hello, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting. Big pleasure for me to be here.
What is your evaluation of the current political situation in Moldova?
If we look at retrospective analysis, we may see that political crisis in Moldova happen only on a yearly basis, because there is a permanent institutional struggle between different branches of power. Currently, there is a struggle between the president, who is affiliated with the Socialist Party, and the parliament, who is consists of more pro-European coalition. At the same time, in Moldova, there is a strong influence of one strong man. He is a businessman, he is considered an oligarch, his name is Vlad Plahotniuk, and he has a very strong power, he has a strong influence in media, in state institutions, in courts, and at the same time, Moldova is somehow an area of confrontation between the West and Russia, as Moldova is nearly equally divided between pro-European parties who want to continue pro-European foreign policy and parties who seek closer ties with Russia. And
both of those sides have a clear standpoint of view, so let's take a listen at both of the sides now.
The decree signed by Mr. Filip on the dissolution of parliament and the declaration of early parliamentary elections on September 6 does not comply with the constitutional norms. By this, today I signed a decree repealing those decisions of the acting prime minister. We have to admit that we are facing constitutional and political crisis. In our opinion, it is impossible to solve the constitutional crisis because of certain decisions of the Constitutional Court, which are, do we like it or not, are Constitutional Court's decisions. I do not know any precedent when its decisions were not executed. The meaning of the court could not be nullified or changed by political statements, statements for media, or any official statements.
What would you say about the decision of the Constitutional Court? Is it correct? Would you call it a correct one?
I guess it is more a question for specialists in constitutional law. Here, a principal question is that how several provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of Moldova should be interpreted, because one party, namely the newly formed government, which has a challenged legitimacy, claims that the government should be formed within 3 months after the parliamentary elections, while the outgoing government, or the government that wants to maintain in power, headed by Pavel Filip, and backed by an oligarch Vlad Plahotniuk, claims that 3 months mean 90 days. So, and they claim that a period when the government was formed, it expired the deadline. And according to this narrative, the deadline was June 7.
Okay, nevertheless, Moldova is a very important strategic partner for Ukraine, and that has been voiced by Ukrainian officials a number of times. Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs called on the Moldovan officials to not suppress the protests that erupted all over the country due to the situation in order not to repeat the Russian scenario. However, Ukraine's SBU has strengthened the security measures on the borders. Why?
First thing why Ukraine has to strengthen and pay more attention to Ukrainian-Moldovan border is that it is still unclear how Transnistrian issue can be used in order to influence, to have some impact on the further political developments in Moldova. Because Ukraine may be cautious of possible provocations of some pro-Russian groups that may theoretically come across Ukraine and then go to Moldova and be used in case of forceful scenario of developments. And the second reason is that there is some kind of security cooperation between Ukrainian and Moldovan security forces, and this can be as part of this kind of bilateral agreements.
If the situation in Moldova remains destabilizing, would it make Ukraine weaker geographically?
Yeah, Ukraine will be more vulnerable. First of all, in security terms, here there are some factors that Ukraine should take into consideration. First is how the new government or the current government, if its legitimacy is affirmed, what will they do on Transnistria? Because Ukraine fears that this government that is composed of both AKUM, pro-European platform, and the socialists, the Party of Socialists, who is considered pro-Russian, agree on Russia's proposals for Transnistria's reintegration, which is called Cossacks plan. It means that Moldova de facto will be federalized, and this kind of formula of Transnistrian solution can be brought to Donbass, and Russia and other international players will increasingly press on Ukraine to repeat such formula of reintegration. Second, if when it comes to solution to Transnistrian conflict, the Moldovan authorities will agree on increased number of Russian troops. It means that Ukraine, in particular Odessa region, will face and practically will be surrounded by hostile forces, and they may be used to support some kind of subversive groups which may potentially destabilize Bessarabia region or the situation in Odessa, because according to many sociological polls, this region is considered, I would say, the level of pro-Russian moods and the separatist moods is higher than in any other regions. For example, than in Mykolaiv region or Dnipropetrovsk region.
Okay, if the situation in Moldova resolves in such a way that pro-Russian officials are going to take over the country, what's going to happen? Well, how is Ukraine going to feel in this situation? How is this going to affect the political situation in Ukraine?
On the one hand, Ukraine will have to play a waiting game and see how the European Union, the United States, Romania, and other actors will cooperate with the new Moldovan government. Because for Ukraine to ignore the government which is formed in accordance with the will of the Moldovan people expressed at the parliamentary election, and which gained official support from Ukraine's Western partners, I guess it is impossible in political terms. But on the other hand, Ukraine may use its political and economic influence on Moldova in order to avoid some kind of U-turn in Moldovan foreign policy towards Russia. Ukraine has enough economic, infrastructure and other leverages in order to somehow to have some kind of influence on developments in Moldova.
Thank you so much for coming here and giving this precise explanation. That was Eugene Yaroshenko. He's an international relations expert at the Democracy House think tank. Thank you so much for watching UATV. Stay tuned for more.